Low-cost airliner Comair has dismissed the government's bailout of South African Airways as uncompetitive. It says the move contravenes South Africa's aviation transport policy. This after South Africa agreed to guarantee 500 billion rand in loans for troubled state airline South African Airways. That's over the next 2 years. Earlier on, we spoke to company's CEO Eric Venter and asked him why he believes the move is uncompetitive. Let's take a look.
Transport policy in place that was originally formulated in 1992 and again revised in 96. And it very clearly stipulates that in order for the private sector to enter the market, South African government is not permitted to fund SAA in its domestic operations. Now, we do understand that there are certain areas in which it is legitimate for government to fund SAA, particularly on strategic routes that are not of interest to the private sector, such as maybe Beijing or certain routes into Africa. But certainly in the domestic market, there's been a lot of interest in entering this market over the years. But despite that, 9 of the 11 carriers that have entered this market have actually failed. And a lot of that has been due to the fact that they've had to compete against a domestic South African Airways that has not been constrained in any way in terms of its financial performance, and therefore the way that it operates and the way that it prices, etc.
Well, this bailout certainly has sparked a lot of debate. Ashraf, do you think that South Africa should continue to prop up and support the airline?
Well, the first question he asked is where's the money being allocated? But I mean, whoever flies SAA domestically knows how expensive it is relative to BA. So one wonders, whether it is domestic, because I know that on the domestic routes their pricing is fairly aggressive. The Beijing route he mentioned and the regional routes, I can see that those could be unprofitable for a period of time. And then we've just seen recently in the last 2 weeks, SAA has cancelled its London to Cape Town flights, which just goes to show you that they are taking cognizance of routes that are not profitable.
Yeah.
But I think within South Africa, and unfortunately I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but I think domestically they should be making a profit.
I saw a stat today, I think it was from IATA, saying that the net margin in the global airline industry is 0.6%. I mean, that number says it all, and it shows why smaller airlines are saying help us, because this bailout is not going to do us any good.
Well, yeah, it's how long is a piece of string, because it's 5 billion here, and then what after that? The finances of SAA are opaque as to how they allocate capital, or should I say misallocate capital. Unless you're an unreconstructed communist, no one in their right mind would invent SAA in the current environment. So
there's a sentiment factor,
well,
about a national carrier.
Flag carriers belong to the 50s and 60s, but maybe the government's still in that frame of mind. But certainly, I mean, Eric's quite right. You've got the private sector here doing an outstanding job with both hands tied behind their back, and they can fail, as indeed we've seen. And we only see in certain routes where the private sector's been muscled out how expensive they've in fact actually sort of become domestically. So is it going to change? Probably not. But what we do need is a thriving level playing field, and I don't see that coming anytime soon.
Closing comment from you, Ashraf, I suppose on the airline industry, if you have any.
Well, I think given the state of the global economy right now, it's no surprise that airlines are failing, and it's very difficult because you're getting squeezed on the oil price, and then of course on pricing, because people aren't that happy to fly on a regular basis as they did 5 years ago.